a podcast to honor the gods.
This better come with a sacrifice.
Deus Ex Media.
Content and Capable acknowledges the Indigenous people on the land on which we record this podcast, the Turungurung people. We offer our respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Sovereignty was never ceded. Welcome to Content and Capable, where somehow Christina let us create memes and it went a little bit off the rails. My name's Sam, I'm your host. And joining me today from all the way from Mount Olympus and the Empire State Building, we wish, is Raye. Hi, Raye.
Hey all. I've never been to the Empire State Building. Charlie has though, so...
The week we have been recording is the week that Charlie and the rest of the Percy Jackson podcasters have been in the States, and I have never felt more lonely in my life. It's kind of sad, to be honest.
Oh, no, I feel you. I'm in the States, but, you know, the States is like the most ridiculously huge country. It's not. There are much larger countries in the world, but still...
It's still like massive and like a pain in the ass to get anywhere because it's beyond like, you know, I could just jump on a cheap flight there, especially, you know, certain parts of the States. So like, let's try to price gouge you out of traveling anywhere. But yeah, look, it's been amazing to watch everyone get together. But I think it's also been, like, even more amazing to see how excited everyone else is. Like all of us who are at home watching Charlie, like, have fun. It feels like proud parents. Charlie, you're having fun. We love it.
Get retweeted by Riordan's. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. All the big flexes. I'm, like, sitting here going, I had 30 people listen to the podcast last week. But yes, well, it's lovely to have you on, and we're going to have just as much fun as being on top of the Empire State Building.
Oh, hell yeah.
I say in a very empty promise. So we're here to talk a little bit about growing up religious and kind of moving away from that. Raye, did you want to give a quick background as to, like, your upbringing within religion?
Hell yeah. So, you know that I'm like rural America, so you can assume Christian.
Yeah.
That would be the correct assumption. Protestant, Lutheran, the people who are like, we know what Luther was talking about, so we're gonna take his whole shit and say that it's ours. Wow. The rest of you are making stuff up.
I went to a Lutheran high school, so this is like, no. Flashbacks.
Amazing. Yeah. If this means anything to anybody, I was in the Wells denomination.
Oh, far out. Not this. So, when I was in high school, the Lutheran Church went through this significant milestone where it was like I think it was like 100 years of like Lutherans in Australia, but it was also like 40 years since they'd like recombined the two sects of Lutheranism.
Oh boy.
Because somehow even the Lutherans can't agree on what Martin Luther had to say. And it was just like, this feels not very unified. Are you okay, Luther?
No, it's all religion is a mess, and Christians especially are like, I'm right, and if you don't agree with me, you're going to fucking hell.
Yeah.
It's kind of a nightmare.
Kind of.
So that's the Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod. They used to have a little song and other little videos that was like, come to the wells, come to the wells. They don't play that anymore, and it made me mad.
I think we've talked about this very briefly on like one of our Chaos episodes. Because I think I remember Juice like singing it or something stupid.
Oh my god. That's fucking hilarious. Of course we did, though. I have very few talking points in my life.
And I don't know, what was it like growing up in
Okay.
the Lutheran church in Wisconsin?
Well, I didn't live in Wisconsin. I've never actually lived in Wisconsin. I've lived in Texas, Colorado, Kansas, Ohio, South Dakota, Germany very briefly. This is what happens when you have a military family.
Whee! So was it your father or your mother in the
My
military?
father. My mom had a military career for 4 years, and then she had a second kid, me, and she was like, we're not paying for nannies anymore. I'm gonna stay at home. Also, they started making enough money to not be on, like, government programs to feed us. Like, so they
It's
didn't
that
both
thing,
have
your
to
parents
have
get
jobs
rich
anymore.
and then your parents get rich and then stop caring. Like, it comes across as like, oh, they don't care anymore. No. But it's just like, it's like, okay, I don't know what's going on here.
Just like it's interesting to me to realize that we were like poor growing up, and then like to never really know like what where you are socioeconomically. Like, I think we're upper middle class, or that my parents are. I'm not. I don't have a job. I'm a mess. But
It's very fascinating, I think, coming, like, and I think you and I have a relatively similar. You've been poor as a family, and then you've come into money. You've earned, your parents have earned money, etc., etc. And then you're like, I don't know where I fit socioeconomically anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we have more money than we did, but we're still we're still cheapskates.
yeah, exactly. The thing is that when your parents grow up poor, they never lose that mindset. It's you scrimp and you save. My parents grew up without throwing out bacon grease because that's calories that you can't afford to get rid of. Like,
Yeah.
but anyways, to get like a little back on topic, so my church was like a pretty like conservative church. Obviously you can't be gay, but it's not like one of those like very hardcore fundamentalist like churches in America. You'll hear a lot of horror stories, a lot of really scary cultish stuff. I don't have any of that, I actually remember being like kind of like feeling like we were kind of hypocritical as a kid, like, for believing that God, like, controls the universe and stuff. We are really casual about this, aren't we? Like, shouldn't we be, like, a little more, I don't know, dedicated to this whole thing?
It is very fascinating that, like, it is the weird middle ground. Because obviously we talk, especially when we talk about religion in a political context, we often talk about the extremes, people who don't believe, or hate, black BIPOC people, or, and it's like, or like have such hate to like gay people they can't even sit in the same room as someone who may be homosexual. And it's like, this is like, but then you forget that there is a middle ground of like groups of Christians and bits and pieces that like are fairly okay with it, or maybe not entirely agree or are entirely in support of it, but are like, you're a human being. We aren't going to be mad at you for being a human being.
You see, they were mad. They just wouldn't tell it to you to your face.
Oh, that too. They're too polite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it was the kind of church where a woman cannot be a pastor, but it also wasn't like that crazy.
See,
It was a very like Bible literal church.
Very fascinating. I remember my parents getting in a massive fight with the Catholic primary school that we all went to. For context, I am and still am a Catholic. Does it mean that I agree with a lot of things that the institution of the Catholic Church has to say? I think, but you know, it was very fascinating because there were some staff members at the Catholic school. Understandably, not everyone at a Catholic school is going to be Catholic. Like statistically, that's just kind of impossible.
Oh yeah.
But some of those staff were like, we are going to like completely ignore the religious education like stuff that they're having to teach, and we're just going to go absolutely off the rails. Like not even a semblance of Christianity here. And like obviously my parents are Catholic enough that they're like, let's make complaints, and they did, and whatever. But it was like, yeah, and I think this is like the weird thing as well. It's like you sent your kids to a Catholic school to have like some sort of religious education, and there was none. And for some of my siblings,
so
they were
weird
like,
to me.
well,
Like-
it wasn't the fact that like the whole school there was no Catholic education. It was the fact that it was either really kind of like substandard, or the teacher's like, I don't believe in this, so I'm not going to teach it properly. And it's like, well, you're not actually fulfilling the curriculum that has been set out, and we understand you don't believe in it, but it is a curriculum, and it's like the government has asked us to do this. It's not like you don't get to pick and choose what parts of the curriculum you do and don't teach. Like, yeah.
That's also interesting because in America, a religious school would never be a government school. They're all private institutions. And so
I think an American conservative would come over to Australia, look at how our education is system is set up, and then call us all communists for the next 100 years. The government has complete control over the curriculum is set by the federal government. The state government then sets standards and testing regimens. And regardless of whether you're a religious school, you're a public school, you're a private school, you're a non-religious private school, you know, any kind of combination, you must follow the Australian curriculum. And especially for later high school and like important parts through like primary school, you must hit these points. If you choose to do religious education, which a lot of state schools and a lot of state-run schools didn't, you also had to hit these points because that's what the Australian curriculum dictates you have to hit.
right,
It's still very Christian-based because it's a Christian country.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. I didn't actually know that you guys had like national religion.
Yeah, it is. So it's fascinating because we a lot of our like big growth points as a population have been when we've had immigrants from all over the world move here. The religion's kind of muddied out. So theoretically, we are a Christian nation by default. I think like most Western nations are like, and it's fascinating because obviously the predominant is Christianity to some extent, but you've also got quite a significant Muslim population, and you've got quite a significant Jewish population, and the Greek Orthodoxes because there's so many Greeks here. The Greek Orthodoxes also are like pretty significant. Like My Big Fat Greek Wedding. I think is that an Australian film? I think I have to check. But it looked... Sorry, quickly searches up My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Actually, who's the director? Sorry. And he's American. Okay, maybe it is an American one.
I feel like I remember
My
American
Big Fat Greek
accents,
Wedding
but
felt...
I've only seen it once.
It felt very Australian. Because it's like, oh wait. I think it's also in that like that early 2002s, you know. There were a lot of movies like that. There's another movie. It's a Baz Luhrmann movie that it's got a similar like representation of Greek culture, and And it's like, you know, we've got to... Sorry. This is the episode of 1,000 Tangents. But, you know, I think because it's, like, muddied out, like, and also, like, our governments are fairly removed from religion. Like, we are fairly... like, church and state are fairly separated. Like, it's not perfect, but also, you know, we've had, you know, a variety of, like... leaders who like believe in different things in bits and pieces, and so you know, our education system reflects the fact that we've got a diverse population, and it's like you're not forced to be Christian once you move to Australia.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, but yeah. So did you like? Obviously, you moved around a lot, but did your parents send you to a religious school?
No, I went to public schools except for 1 year. I went to my church had a school, like a little one that just was attended in the church, and I went there. Well, that must have been like 4th grade or something like that. So I was pretty young, but you know, we memorized some Bible verses. We did math and English and normal shit. Just.
Yeah.
What's interesting about that is that you never run into more culty shit than you do in a religious school.
Especially a school where you're sitting in the church. Yeah. Like, literally, like, this is the weird shit. Like, I don't think people who didn't go to religious schools don't realize how, like, very, not anti-Christian, but, like, how very willing to, like, do stuff that is completely against the teachings of Christianity.
Oh, yeah. Some
kids are. Yeah. You know, as you said, you know, Bloody Mary in the bathrooms, you know, it's definitely, like, it wasn't unheard of.
I think it's just when you isolate kids in, like, a smaller population, especially, like, that kind of thing, where it's got, like, a dozen people in the entire school, and... you just, all the weirdness just comes out.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of, it's strange. And actually, it reminds me of, like, Scouts as well. So when I did Scouts as a kid, there was a lot of hazing and a lot of, like, really weird stuff. And I don't know, Scouts gave me the heebie-jeebies because they felt very mildly religious, because you would like, part of it, obviously, like, I think Scouts started quite religious, but, like, you know, being the one for all kind of shenanigans, it then has turned into, like, this is an organization for all, but we're still going to say, like, a prayer or, like, have a minute silence of, like, thinking about nature and stuff. It felt very Buddhist, to be honest. In my very loose understanding of Buddhism. But, you know, it felt very culty to be in a Catholic school or a religious school, for, you know, and I went to 2 religious schools. I didn't even go to a single public school. But I don't know, like, was it a weird culture shock going between public and religious schools?
The thing is that I was moving schools so often that it was just like, well, here's another new experience. You know, it wasn't that odd for me. It's harder, you know, even to go to a public school and then try to, like, meet people and make friends. So honestly, I probably had more trouble adjusting to, like, every new school that I went to as I was getting older, rather than, like, the different culture of, like, that one church school.
Yeah, it is very fascinating. I do have to, like, point out that it was quite fascinating to move schools, especially at, like, so I moved between grade 6 and grade 7. So we don't have 3 schools, we only have 2 sets of schools. And it was very weird being in that really transitional kind of, like, I still felt very attached to my primary school, but then moving to a completely different high school where I knew pretty much no one. I think there was like 3 people in like grades above me that I recognized, and that was about it. And it was so hard, and doing it all the time, like I would hate to do that.
Oh yeah, I have all kinds of mental problems. So to talk about like my faith as a kid, I was very, very invested in having like a relationship with God, and like I don't know, I had like anxiety about it. I was like, do I have enough faith? I remember like once I was leaving church and I was like, okay, God, if I am going to go to heaven, then have me get to the car first. And then I like sprinted to get to the car, and I was touched it first, and I was like, oh, okay. like I'm probably good. I don't know that I'm good, but I'm probably good.
It's weird how superstitious kids get. 'Cause like, as kids, you're fairly like oblivious to the shenanigans that are, like the actual adult shenanigans that are going around you. But then you like would make up things with like, oh, you know, the whole like, you know, stepping on a line, you break your mother's spine. Step on a crack, you break your mother's back or something, which is the same thing. But it was like this weird, it was like, you know, weird things like that, which probably meant that like most of these children were probably mildly neurodivergent. But like, also it was like very quickly jumped onto some weird superstitions, or was easily scared into like doing something a certain way, and it was very weird.
Well, the human brain is so, like, gung-ho about patterns. It loves patterns so much. So superstition just, like, makes sense that happens constantly, all the time to people.
Yeah. And so, I don't know, as you kind of grew up and got into, like, high school and bits and pieces, did you start like questioning your faith, like, or questioning the religious leaders or your parents or anything, as you know, as you kind of like were aware of what's going on around you?
So in high school is when I had like my big things where I eventually ended up losing my faith entirely. Before that, I had been, you know, I believed that the Bible was true. And I believed that my church leaders were interpreting the Bible to the best of their abilities. But I didn't think that meant that I had to be on the same line with them on everything. I thought that faith was a very personal thing, and that I could make up my own mind about, you know, how I should act in the world and what I should believe. Like, I like to I like to think that I've always been for gay rights, because I remember specifically having a conversation with my mom where I'm like, hey, we're supposed to separate church and state, right? Why can't gay people get married? That's a state thing. Marriage is a legal thing. I think that they should be allowed to get married. I might think it's a sin, but that doesn't have anything to do with them. Like,
I think this is like where young people kind of like gets the nuance of this a bit more, of like, and the point is completely valid. Like, a legal marriage or a legal partnership is like a very much state thing. And obviously a religious marriage obviously has to conform to the religious rules.
But if they're not getting married in your church, then you don't have any right to tell people what to do.
Yeah, exactly. And it was very weird. Like, I don't know. Like, how did that conversation go with your mother? What did you, like, is that kind of, did they react poorly?
She didn't agree with me, but no poor reaction. My mom is where I get my conflict averseness from. You know, she's a very, very mild person. But I did have a conversation in high school with a kid in my English class who was a gay Christian who was like, yeah, I don't think it's a sin. And I was like, yeah, exactly. You don't think it's a sin because you interpret this and this differently. That's totally fine. Lots of Christians interpret lots of things differently. This is just one factor. I don't see why people, like, focus on that so much. I think that that's because your culture is, like, gender has, like, these weird things about gender where it's so strict and it's a cultural thing and not actually a religious thing, and I don't want to get into that right now. Never mind.
Yeah, it's like, and I really kind of, like, wished that as a kid, especially, like, in my teens, my parents were more willing to have a good faith discussion about these topics. Because I really, like, even today, I don't quite understand where my parents sit on everything. And then, you know, people might ask me questions about my parents, and I'm like, I have no idea. Like, my parents don't even, my parents don't even tell me who they vote for. Like, obviously, I think in the States it's a huge, like, marker of your identity or who you vote for. But, like, my parents don't even discuss that. That's, like, an incredibly private thing that they don't talk about ever. And I'm like, I don't even know who they vote for, let alone, I know most of their beliefs, but, you know, how it, like, works intersectionally and how they feel, like, because we live in like, our world is very multicultural, very, you know, multi-faith, and, you know, and people believe all sorts of things, and we are friends with, I am friends with gay people, you know, it's like, we can't help but interact with people who don't fit our ideologies, and it's, I think that the whole put your head in the sand kind of shenanigans, I'm like, what? This is not going to help. Like, you're just making your position worse.
Yeah, not being able to talk about this kind of stuff is only going to hurt us as a whole, because discourse is how we come up with new ideas and how we learn together, you know?
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, my mom, chill. My dad, I never bring up political conversations with my dad or, like, religion.
Wow.
Oh yeah, no. One time my mom and I were trying to tell him that, like, maybe communism doesn't work in the real world, but it's, like, a nice idea, like, for everyone to be equal and stuff. It's like a nice idea, even if you don't think that it's practical. And he was, like, so angry. Like, to him, that's an attack.
Wow.
Like, he could not concede that like, the idea is nice or whatever. In his mind, communist equals evil. Evil. And so, yeah, he gets so defensive that you can't bring up any of that kind of stuff with him.
Yeah. And it's hard because you want to be, like, you want to have those discussions, especially with family. Like, family is supposed to be this safe space where, you know, no one's going to agree on anything, but you're all there with each other, and, like, you've got a deeper connection based than your religious or political or your beliefs or, you know, shared interests or anything. It's a deeper, like, theoretically is a deeper connection, and it's still, like, it's still hard to sit there and go, I want to have a discussion about this.
I'm still technically a member of my church because I couldn't call them and say, hey, take me off your register, I don't want to be a member anymore, without risking my parents being told about that. My parents don't know that I'm not religious. My parents don't know my gender identity. They don't know my sexual orientation. So if anybody out there is a parent, you should be open with your kids and to be accepting of however they're going to end up, or else you won't know any shit about them. Like, if I want to have a relationship with my parents, I'm too afraid. there's no way that I could talk to them about any of the things in my life.
Yeah, and does that hurt? Like, I've had a similar situation, but did that hurt for you? Like, not being able to have those conversations?
I feel guilty all the time, with all members of my family. You know, when people in my family extend generosity to me, stuff that is normal for, like, aunts and cousins and whoever to do, I can't help but think, you wouldn't do this if you knew anything about me. You know?
Yeah.
And that eats at me. Teddy, my podcast host and cousin, is in a very similar boat. They don't give a shit. They're like, oh yeah, lying to people? I do that all the time. I don't care. Like, that it doesn't strike to them as lying, or like they don't feel like people have a right to demand their, like, inner personal life. They feel that their own self belongs to themselves, and they don't owe that to other people, and that's, like, really cool. I just can't help but feel like I'm being hypocritical. And hypocrisy bothers me more than anything.
And I think that's probably, like, where often the start of, like, people deconstructing their faith sits, is that, like, you see a hypocrisy and you, like, obviously vehemently oppose that hypocritical ideology or action, and then everything starts kind of crumbling around you, because it's like, oh shit, you know, I don't, you know, X, Y, and Z, and, you know, A, B, C. I don't know why I'm doing this. But it's really hard to sit there and go, oh, you know, like, I now have to step away from this, but my family will be, like, so hurt if I, like, tell them that. And like, obviously, you still want to be relatively close with your family as well. It's like, I don't care about your religious beliefs. I want to be close with you. And sometimes you worry that, like, your religious beliefs are the thing that, like, is still holding them to you. And then, you know, you've got to, like, you let that go, and it's like, they're like, are they gonna ever accept me for who I am? I think being scared of being separated from your family is really hard as well. And
if I don't work up that courage, I'm never gonna know how they would react. But
yeah,
I know that it's not good, because I had been there in that place, and I had felt that before, of when you really earnestly believe that people who don't believe in God are going to go to hell, that is, like, terrifying. Like, when you have friends who say, like, oh yeah, I'm an atheist, that like, it's, like, panic inducing. And I know that telling them that I left the church would hurt them.
Yeah. Have you, like, ever gotten close to talking about it with even one of your parents?
My mom and I do have more frank discussions. But I don't know. I feel like I've kind of, like, edged around it in ways that I think that she might suspect more than she lets on. But it's not something that I've ever really tried to have a conversation about.
Yeah, and I look, it's hard as well, because obviously you're close with your mother, and it's like, well, more close with your mother than your father, and it's like, what if this breaks it all?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this a lot of, like, the religious guilt, and, like, Catholics joke about Catholic guilt all the time, and it's fascinating that we're recording this on St. Patrick's Day, because it's terrifying to, you know, to feel like you're letting someone down. And obviously, like I haven't stepped away from my faith, but I have watched family members who have stepped away from their faith because of various reasons, including things that had happened within the family that had meant that they couldn't continue to engage because they brought up that traumatic memories or uncomfortable memories going back into the church every week, and still, pussyfooting around, especially my grandfather, who we all love. My grandfather, like, everyone really loves him, but, like, there are parts of my family who are, like, he is so religious that, like, we don't want to, like, hurt him. Like, we don't, like... And it hurts so much to watch it all happen. And, like, I kind of sit on the fence and I go, I can really understand where people are coming from. But I have no idea what to do. Oh, and the St. Patrick's Day as well. Also, like, thank you to the Irish for not giving it a flying fuck about the way that they practice their Catholicism and somehow creating a national day where you get pissed up and eat like crazy and break all the rules of Lent in the middle of Lent. It used to so in the Catholic Church you've got these things called holy days of obligation. There's only 2 in Australia. Each country does it differently. We've only got 2, and back in the day we used to have heaps more, and one of them was St. Patrick's Day. Because we had such a large Irish population, and the idea of that was because it was a feast, all the rules of Lent went out the window, and so you would be able to do whatever you wanted. So if Lent was on a Friday, you're like, we can eat meat. Anyway, sorry, rants and tangents.
No, that's amazing.
So, like, after you've, like, stopped living at home with your parents and moved away, what did it feel like having that physical reminder of that, like, your family is quite religious?
It felt really, really weird at first. I started going to college in a dorm room, states away from them, and the idea that I could come out to people and not worry about that, like, somehow coming back to bite me because it's college, it's safe to tell people, like, hey, I'm queer, and it felt really, really weird to have the opportunity to be open about that. I still, and sometimes, I use my birth name instead of my name that I chose. I don't tell people what pronouns I want them to use, partially because I don't even know, but also, I'm uncomfortable talking to, like, strangers about that sort of thing.
Do you ever is there ever that fear that, like, somehow your sexuality and your religious beliefs would get back to your parents out of your control?
Outside of, like, talking to family members and stuff, not really. My life is so separate from them. In a way that kind of makes me sad. I'm not going to tell them about my podcasting. I'm not going to tell them about, what I enjoy, and they're not going to talk to people who I know. So it's not really something that concerns me anymore.
Yeah. And, like, I don't know, you live away from your family. Do you see them often? Like, obviously that's, like, where your religion has come from. So, obviously, being reminded of that time might... I don't know. In my head, I'm like, if I moved away from my religion, obviously my family's still really important to me, but I would find it very hard to go back to go visit my family.
I used to be, like, right after I kind of left the church, I was very uncomfortable being made to go to church. I didn't want to be there. I felt guilty. I felt upset. I started to feel, like, mad that I was being forced to do this thing when it didn't have anything to do with me anymore. My church is very serious about communion. If you don't believe exactly what they believe, they don't want you to take communion with them. And so that was a source of, like, horrific guilt for me. It was like, I'm ruining this ritual for these people by my presence. Like, because I can't tell them that I'm not someone who's supposed to be here. I felt like an imposter. Yeah. It's a whole thing. And so now I'm kind of getting over that. I don't want to go to church, but there are certain aspects that I miss. I miss singing with a large group of people every week. That was always really important to me. I miss the kind of, like, ritual aspects of it. I miss the feelings that I used to get from it. But it's not something that I like to engage with all that much. But now that I've, like, had some more time, I can enjoy, like, Christian aesthetics again in, like, media. I can, like, chase that feeling in other ways. And that's kind of fun.
It's very fascinating. Anyone that I've spoken to who has been religious at any point in time, and obviously I think you and Ted made the comment last time you were on here, the traditions and the rituals are very enticing. And, like, I think also it frustrates me as a practicing Catholic, but it is very... it looks very appealing for, like, these people who are uber positive all the time, to kind of be, they're super happy all the time, and they're like, this is amazing, everything's amazing. It's very jarring to me because I hate it. I'm like, you're not a realist in any way, shape, or form. Like, please acknowledge that things aren't easy. But also, it's like, oh, I kind of appreciate, like, I everything's great, and, you know, the world's awesome, for, like, the hot second that you can do about that before you think of all the stupid shit that's going on.
I love kids media for that. I watch a lot of cartoons. Sometimes it's nice to, like, feel like the world is good for a second. I like, Centaur World is a good show for, like, kind of playing both sides of that, of, like, looking at, like, saccharine stuff and then, like, treating that idea seriously while still, like, being very cynical about it. If you've never seen that show, it's pretty good.
Awesome. I have to check it out. But I think the other thing I do love as well is, like, as much as Hillsong is, like, only the second worst thing that has come out of Australia, it is the music that, like, especially what we like to joke, the happy clappy Christians have, is pretty cool, to be honest. I'm like, that's pretty good. Like, it's fun. It's, like, positive music, and, like, sometimes I'm like, I'm in the mood to listen to, like, some Christian rock. I don't know, it's very weird.
So, let me tell you, the factors that led to me actually starting to lose my faith. I was about to say, we haven't really discussed it. Yeah. Because I personally think that it's very funny that the two things that happened were, one, I had a Mormon best friend, and two, I got really into Homestuck. And those were the two things that led to me stopping being Christian. They were right. If you read Homestuck, you become a godless heathen. Okay. So, I'm me. I'm in 10th grade. I've moved to a new school. my plan for making friends in my new school is I'm gonna carry around manga and read it constantly, and eventually someone will talk to me.
Yeah.
It takes a couple months, but this actually does work. So...
What?
Yes.
I love how it took a couple of months.
Yes. It was a better friend-making plan than any that I have now, so... So jot that down. Being weird and reading manga all the time can make you friends.
We promise we are weird.
So yeah, I make my new best friend, who was like a kindred spirit. We did everything together. We could have the best conversations, and she was super duper Mormon. And through her, I made all my other friends with all the other weeb kids who liked anime and like fandom stuff and art, and so that was my whole friend group. And those other friends got me into Homestuck. My Mormon friend would never read Homestuck. It has swears in it.
I forget how conservative the Mormons are until, like, some stupid shit, like, they mention, I can't do this because of this. And I'm like, what the actual fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I hung out with her a lot, which means that I ended up going to some Mormon events. She had to go to, like, a study session, a religious study session with the other kids in the morning at like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So a couple of times she like drove me to school, and I went and did that with her, which is crazy. Okay.
Let's get religiously indoctrinated.
Exactly. Bad news is that Mormonism is a cult. And I'm sorry if this is the first time that you're hearing it. I don't have anything against Mormon people. I have met a lot of really wonderful Mormon people. It's a cult. They are trying to control you. It's really messed up, and you should get out if you can.
Actually, quickly before we continue, have you read Jeanette McCurdy's book, I'm Glad My Mum Died?
I have not, because I'm afraid of it.
I read it. I mean, it's a really hard read, and I completely understand as someone who's, like, been within that religious, like, all those religious organizations. But the way that, like, she, as a child, interacted with Mormonism, I'm like, how has, like, the government not cracked down on how culty this is or something?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But they won't. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, you went to the cult session.
So, no. The thing is that it wasn't, like, the cultiness or the controlness that bothered me. All of that, I was like, yeah, it's just a different religion, it's a different faith, this is fine. What did bother me was, like, every time that I would hear something that they believed, I would be like, that sounds made up. I'm not going to disrespect you, I'm not going to disrespect your faith, I would never say that to you. But, it sounds to me like that is something that some guy just said one time, that he found some plates that said that Jews were in America in his backyard. That sounds really fake. But, like, and then that had me, like, because I'm like, okay, but this is a legitimate faith, you believe in it just as seriously as I believe in my faith. Oh, I wonder if that's how my faith seems from the outside. Like, if you looked at this without having grown up in it, does it sound like that's just something somebody made up? And the answer was yes. I was like, all right, I'm gonna look at the Bible, I'm gonna start at Genesis. And I was like, oh, this is like every other culture's creation story. Like,
yeah.
This sounds like something that some people who didn't fully understand the way that the natural world works would say to explain the way that the natural world works. It says that there's water in the sky, there's an ocean up there. There's not. I know that there's not. So, I wonder what that's all about.
Unless science has really gone off the rails.
Yeah. Exactly. So So that was one factor, was, like, having to, like, having that, like, contextualization of, like, if I look at this from an outside perspective, it looks really different from the way that I've grown up. The other factor, I read Homestuck, which introduced me to queer media, which introduced me to fandom, which introduced me to Tumblr.
Oh, look, that was a very slippery slope.
Yeah.
You're basically going vertical at this point.
Like I said, I never had, like, a quote-unquote problem with gay people and them existing. I was like, everybody sins. It's one sin. I don't understand why we're so fixated on this one thing. But then I started running into, like, queer discourse, queer politics on Tumblr. And people saying, like, your perspective is not good enough. You're still saying that there's something wrong with being queer. And that is not okay, because there isn't anything wrong with it. It's not harmful. If you're acting like it's harmful, then you're causing harm to people. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. It's not harmful for people to be gay. I know that. And all of the other rules that I follow, I think that there's a reason for sins. I think that sins are things that cause harm. Why would God say that being gay was wrong if it doesn't cause any harm? That seems like that's only going to cause problems for people. I don't understand the logic here. I'm trying to, like, reconcile my vision of God with saying something like that, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. And I just, like, it is strange, because a lot of, like, and then you have a look at it, especially progressive people breaking down, like, especially the Christian, like, justification as to why homosexuality is a sin. And a lot of it's, like, founded on, like, the translation of the Bible and, like, not quite understanding what the understanding about sexuality was back in, like, early, like, back in before Jesus' time, like, theoretically, you know, it's just such a weird, and you start deconstructing it and you go, what the hell's going on here? Like, why are we still saying that this is such a terrible thing when we can't even agree on what translation of the Bible to use? This is where, like, I have a big problem with Protestantism, where, like, it's not that the Protestants don't have a point, but it's the fact that you're like, very King Henry VIII. I don't like the rules, so I'm just going to create a new sect and see what happens.
So a good podcast that I can recommend is Apocrapels. Their tagline is something like, two non-believers read through the Bible and try not to be jerks about it.
I love that.
They're both, like, ex-Christians who like to just read through the Bible and various apocrypha, and, like, look at it as literature, and as historical documents, rather than as, like, belief.
Which I think is probably the better way to go about it. And, like, the more I learn about the way that sections of the Bible were written and sections of the Bible were translated, it's like the more I've got to take, like, what's being said with a grain of salt. And this is where, like, the reason why I haven't, like, left the Catholic Church is half, I want to say, is, like, maybe a third Catholic guilt, but the other 2/3 is the fact that, like, my interactions with religious leaders within the Catholic Church, like, you know, I'm not talking about bishops, I'm talking about, like, the priest,
right.
has been, like, while there are still certain hang-ups, the vast majority of the time, what they're saying is usually fairly practical. It's like, you know, you shouldn't do this because it's a bad thing. Like, it's like, don't be mean to people. Don't say mean things about people. How about let's be kind, you know, etc., etc. And it's like, I just wish that more people were willing to kind of go, these are like the core fundamentals of Christianity. Because if you have a look at like what the Jews were doing back in, when Julius Caesar was in charge of, all of ancient Rome, which included Palestine, it is so far removed from A, what modern Judaism looks like, but B, what we consider being decent human beings looks like. And that's why it was so radical. And I think that the core tenets of Christianity, the core teachings, are so important. And I just try to remove myself from all the stupid shit around me.
Yeah. As much as I feel like I have issues that have come from the church, I'm also, like, legitimately grateful for, like, the moral background that I feel like I got from my Christian upbringing of, like, wanting to be decent to people. I feel like there are other people in the church, in my church, who did not get that, who kind of missed those teachings.
And I think also, the media landscape in which America sits as well, it's very hard to be religious and not be aligned with this constant stream of hate and vitriol that we know is Fox News, or other Christian affiliated media outlets, where instead of promoting love and kindness and respect, we're sitting here talking about how bad the gays are, or how bad drag story time and drag bingo is, or and it frustrates me, because it's like, can you let these people live their own lives? If you don't want to be a part of that, don't be a part of it. Like, if you worry that someone's going to molest your child, maybe take them out of the church first.
Oh, get them.
Anyway. I feel like we've gotten to the end. Is there anything else before we wrap up that you wanted to say or touch on?
Losing your faith is really scary. It feels like you're on a life raft in the middle of this big world that is the ocean, and you were tethered to something, and you cut that tether, and now you are just floating by yourself. But it doesn't have to be that scary. It's you can find people to support you. Look for love and connection in a world that is devoid of purpose. We make our own purpose and our own meaning together, and that's something that's really, really beautiful and can be so rewarding. So that's what I want to leave people with is hope and encouragement. Go out there, meet people. Don't ever give up.
Yeah, exactly. And I know it's been a bit of a deeper topic this episode, and it also happens to be right around Passover and Easter, the episode's coming out. So for all those people who have to relive that religious stuff, just know that there are people out there who feel very similarly, I think. And I think it's really important to know that you aren't alone, and that, the discussions that you can have or want to have can be had in safe spaces. Wow. Okay. Well, that went very deep. Raye, first of all, before we get into plugs, thank you so much for coming in and chatting about this. It's a touchy topic, and I hope we did it justice, and I would love to hear from the listeners about doing it justice. I'd love to hear your perspective. Definitely send an email to contentandcapablepod@gmail.com if you want to share your thoughts. I'm always willing to hear people's thoughts. It's always very fascinating. But Raye, where can people find you on the internet?
Oh yeah, I do a podcast on this very, very podcast network. You may have heard of it. It's of the Eldest Gods. We read Percy Jackson. I'm changing religions. I'm becoming Greek. No, I'm not.
Greek life.
So, yeah, you could listen to that one, or you could listen to Barbie Movies Slap, where my cousin Ted and I watch Barbie movies, and that comes out when it feels like it, every once in a while. That just happens. It descends from above.
I love how, like, we are uber organized on the Deus Ex Media Network, and we're like, we are going to make sure we take scheduled breaks so we don't burn out, and we're consistently producing content. And then your side project is Barbie Movie Slap, where we're like, if we feel like it, we might get around to a Barbie movie sometime soon.
We might fuck around, watch some Barbie, you know.
the normal stuff. Also, very excited for the Barbie movie coming out later this year. Greta Gerwig. I have non-stop been thinking about it. Has there been anything that you wanted to plug that you've been listening, reading, or watching?
Okay, I mentioned Centaur World, that's good. I mentioned Apocrapels. That podcast is great. If you want biblical historical context, if that's something that you're interested in, then like I would definitely recommend that for just like recontextualizing the Bible, thinking of it as like something that's a product of its time, that has its own like politics to it, that has its own like life to it from the people who wrote it. I think that that's really interesting. But one that I haven't mentioned yet is Oh No, Ross and Carrie. They are both also ex-Christians, and they look into fringe science and fringe religions, and they go out and experience people who have fringe beliefs, and experience their talks. They'll go to like psychic shows. They'll go to meetings for small religious groups and just like see what it's like there. And I think that that is really interesting and cool. And they both have also come out with like episodes about their own stories leaving the faith that are much more interesting than mine. So I totally recommend those.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Well, you can find me at sam.the.journalist on Instagram and on TikTok. You can find me at samobjournalist on Twitter. I don't know what I'll be doing this time when this episode comes out on Twitter. I still exist there, and every now and then I tweet a hot take. You can find the podcast at Content the Letter N Capable. You can find on Instagram and on Twitter. And I'm going to plug, for a bit of change of pace, Gilmore Girls, where I think their approach to religion is my favourite. Just like watching Lorelai and Rory be godparents, and like the priests, the Christian priests, the general Christian priests of no denomination, have a chat to them right before they become godparents to Suki and Jackson's children. It's like absolutely hilarious. Like they're like, we believe, and he's like, yeah, but what in? I love it. They're like social chameleons, because they're like, we're not going to get involved in religion, but we are going to be here because it's our friends.
Aw.
And I love it. Amazing support. Anyway, I just finished watching all of Gilmore Girls as well. Turns out Rory is still a painful human being, and we all kind of hate her. But thank you so much, Raye, for coming on the podcast. It has been a blast.
Thanks for having me. I love being on here.
Content and Capable was recorded, edited, and produced by Samuel O'Brien. You can follow the podcast at Content the Letter N Capable on Instagram and Twitter, and you can find it on Facebook. You can also send an email through to contentandcapablepod@gmail.com with any of your thoughts, queries, or concerns. The best way to support the podcast is to leave a review on your preferred podcatcher so more people can hear the podcast. The art was done by Opia, and the music was written, edited, and produced by Jason Hilton. Content and Capable is proud to be a part of the Deus Ex Media Network, where you can find a podcast for any of your nerdy interests.
This season on Of the Eldest Gods,
We make our way through the maze of...
Labyrinth.
Yeah, Labyrinth, whatever. And we tell you all about the next book in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series.
And explain the myth context as we go along.
So, the whole stuck in a maze thing is just a gimmick for this book, right?
Yeah, sure, Raye.
Hey, Charlie, where the fuck are we?
Only you can save us from the labyrinth by listening to our podcast.
Help!
Thank you for listening to Content and Capable. Don't forget to rate and review, and we'll see you next week for another episode.
Deus Ex Media.